Let's start, Charles, with, I guess, the end of the day, because we really learned everything at the end of the day.
After 7.5 hours, the president reveals the purpose practically in the last minute, in which he said, we're going to give it a month or so. We're going to see if we can agree. Obviously, they are not going to agree. Obviously, this was all about giving the appearance of reaching out for other ideas. And it was all about setting the premise for a pivot to reconciliation, i.e., meaning the Democrats are not going to try to ram it through on a procedural trick in the Senate and try to cobble the votes required in the House. Now, I think the Democrats actually helped themselves in the process. They did have a 7.5-hour show in which it appeared as if they were genuinely open. I think it was quite cynical, but I think it allows at least them to argue to independents who want to see a kind of an ecumenical effort to argue that we tried, we went the last mile, and we failed. So in order to get health care reform, we had to go by this partisan procedure. However, on the other hand, the Republicans really helped themselves. The argument against them, it's the party of no. They have no ideas. They're against everything. They're nihilists. In fact, they spend 7 hours, I think, presenting a very strong case. They're knowledgeable. They have ideas. They're interested in reform, but they have differences. Lamar Alexander was dazzling. Paul Ryan was a rapier sharp in rebutting all of the smoke and mirrors that the Democrats had presented. I think it's going to help the Republicans in November on their image, but in the short run, it's going to help the Democrats in trying to ram the thing through.
But I do want to take issue with one thing Charles said. Reconciliation is not a procedural trick. That implies it's illegitimate. Reconciliation has been used many times. Now, you could say it's not wise in this instance on a big piece of social legislation. You could say there are many reasons not to do it, but it's not a trick. It's a completely legitimate
measures.
Yes, and it was used for welfare reform. It was used for Medicare. It's been used for many things. Now, it's not used every day, and clearly the preference for big pieces of social legislation is not to use it, but it's not a trick.
It's a trick because Senator Byrd, who invented it and who talked about it recently, said it was never intended for anything like this. It is a trick in the sense that it was attempted, it was designed as a way to harmonize budgets and cut taxes, raise taxes and cut spending. It was never designed as a way to execute a reform for a sixth of the economy. Well, I thought it was rather interesting the president risks his prestige in doing this. Let's remember, look at the optics of this. 2 months ago, he's standing in the Congress on the podium in the House of Representatives addressing the Congress. He has literally at his feet the whole Congress, the Supreme Court, the generals, and he's speaking to the nation on television. He gives a speech, this is in December, on health care. And he strikes out. He gets nowhere on it. So here he is now 2 months later, and he's literally at the same level as the members of the House and the Senate. He's given up the aura of the presidency, which is half king, half prime minister, and he's now at the level of a prime minister, toe-to-toe with members of a Congress. So he diminishes his aura, and I think it doesn't help him in the long run. And then he gets, at the same time, he is so imperious and so self-confident that he nonetheless acts as the arbiter of what's legitimate and what's not. I mean, he would be saying, well, that's a talking point and that's a legitimate point. You know, if you win the presidency, you win the White House, you win Air Force One, you get a personal chef, but you do not become the arbiter of legitimacy in American discourse. And that's what he appointed himself as.
Charles, final thoughts.
Look, it was a day of theater. I think the president accomplished giving the appearance of reaching across the aisle, but his audience is the Democrats in the House and the Senate. He might marginally have advanced the chance of getting it through. Just 1 point on Medicare. The Democrats it would be demagogic if you were to cut Medicare in the name of saving it, and you oppose that. But what's happening here is Medicare is being cut in order to subsidize a new entitlement. And that is legitimate to attack as incredibly imprudent, and it's not at all demagogic. And if that is what the Republicans are arguing, and most of them are, I think it's a good argument against these cuts.
And Congressman Paul Ryan pointing out that the money's being used twice to shore up Medicare and to spend on another program.
And pretending that the Medicare will be shored up at the same time, which of course is impossible.